The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The truth is being hidden from us. And do you know why? Because if the truth were revealed, our world would come crashing down. Prepare yourself, because now I'm going to lift a veil from your eyes. A veil that has long obscured our vision, and I hope that through this video, you can see the world in different shades. Traditional science will not be able to come anywhere close to the truth, and I say this not in a sensationalistic way, but logically. I myself have studied extensively, both at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels. However, I declare, affirm, and reaffirm, traditional science will not even come close to the truth. And the reason for this is very simple. Science, as education, is part of the pillars of control of society to which we all belong. Let us begin our analysis through the three pillars of domination: labor and the labor system, schooling and the education system, and finally religion and the religious system. And this is the reason why the truth is being hidden. Work, often perceived as a mere necessity for survival and societal contribution, fundamentally shapes our identity and life trajectory. It's a lens through which we view ourselves and are viewed by others, significantly influencing our self-conception. This intrinsic link between work and identity begs crucial questions. How does one's profession define them, and what are the broader implications of this association? Work is a double-edged sword, a source of identity and fulfillment, yet also a potential catalyst for imbalance and early life pressure. The way we engage with work, balance it with other life aspects, and introduce it to the younger generation speaks volumes about our societal values and priorities. Working with something, contributing to society, is not just about defining our identity. It's a deep reflection of who we are within the social fabric. Being an adult, an individual who pays their own bills, isn't merely a matter of independence. It brings a sense of self-worth, of being a contributing member of society. I recall during my postgraduate studies in people management, which involved coaching and leadership, our professor often discussed the intrinsic value of work and the concept of remuneration as a form of retribution. There's a profound thought here. A person who doesn't offer any value to society in terms of production can end up feeling empty, not just personally, but in the context of human societies. Therefore, receiving a payment is more than just a transaction. It's a return for a service rendered to society. Of course, this measure of value isn't always fair. Yet, in one way or another, what we contribute to society is also what we receive from it. The cost of our labor and the value we earn should be, or at least ought to be, directly proportional to the value we deliver to society. In this light, I want you to know and understand the immense satisfaction and gratitude I feel for your presence here, watching and enabling me to perform the work of my life. This relationship between work and societal contribution underscores a fundamental truth. Our labor is not just a means to an end, but a vital part of the ongoing dialogue between individual purpose and collective progress. The joy and fulfillment I derive from this process are immeasurable, and it's a privilege to share this journey with you. The relentless pursuit of career success often leads to an imbalance, where work overshadows personal life, relationships, and leisure. This disproportionate focus on work can drain vitality, causing burnout and a diminished sense of well-being. It's not just a matter of managing time, it's about achieving a harmonious integration of professional and personal life. When work dominates, the fallout is not just individual. It ripples through society, affecting collective productivity and mental health. The implications of starting work at a young age are profound. While it can instill a strong work ethic and maturity, it often comes at the expense of educational opportunities and personal development. This early induction into the workforce places immense pressure on young individuals, potentially hindering their natural exploration and enjoyment of youth. It also prompts us to question the societal norms that prioritize work over education and personal growth. In my perception, we are more than just physical entities bound to a single existence. We are part of the divine, each of us a spark of light emanating directly from God. This spark of light is under pressure to become someone significant in life, to fulfill a role in society, to pay bills, and to work diligently. Day after day, we labor until we reach an advanced age. In some countries, this age is so advanced that when retirement finally arrives, there are very few days left to enjoy this long-awaited phase of life. During this time, our families and relatives, including children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, are often caught up in their own cycles of production, reminiscent of rats in a maze chasing their sustenance, or akin to the myth of Sisyphus as written by Albert Camus. Work, in our postmodern conception, consumes our vital energy, draining every millisecond of our strength until, invariably, at the end of each day, we often find ourselves too exhausted to even take a small step on the road to self-improvement and becoming better individuals. We simply don't have time for this. And do you know since when this has been happening? Did the first humans have time for such self-reflection and growth? As we've seen in other videos, ancient myths, like the Epic of Atrahasis, shed light on the original purpose for which humans were created. And all of this began in Sumer. Further on in this video, we will have the opportunity to study this issue more deeply. For now, let's turn our analysis to the second pillar upon which our world rests. Education, like work, is a critical component of our society, yet it presents its own unique set of challenges and opportunities. In many ways, education is another double-edged sword. It's the cornerstone of knowledge and development, essential for the cultivation of an informed and capable populace. However, the effectiveness of education systems in fostering true understanding, critical thinking, and creativity is often questionable. Contemporary education systems tend to focus on rote learning and standardized testing, leading to the production of graduates who are well-versed in passing exams but may lack the ability to think independently or creatively. This approach can stifle curiosity and discourage students from pursuing knowledge beyond the confines of the curriculum. The result is a generation of individuals who might be technically competent, but lack the depth of understanding and critical thinking skills necessary for innovation and problem-solving in an increasingly complex world. The role of teachers and the content of the curriculum are pivotal in shaping the educational experience. An ideal educational system encourages inquiry and fosters independent thought. It challenges students to question, explore, and synthesize information, rather than simply memorizing facts. Teachers play a crucial role in this process. They should not only impart knowledge, but also inspire a love for learning and encourage students to think critically about the world around them. However, the reality often falls short of this ideal. Many educational systems are constrained by limited resources, outdated teaching methods, and curriculums that do not adequately prepare students for the challenges of the modern world. This situation is exacerbated by societal and economic pressures that prioritize test scores and degrees over actual learning and intellectual growth. Moreover, the education system's focus on producing workers rather than thinkers contributes to a society where economic considerations overshadow the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. This utilitarian view of education as a means to an end, rather than an end in itself, undermines the broader purpose of education: to enrich the human experience and contribute to the development of well-rounded, critically thinking individuals. In my own experience, reflecting on the education I received and the system I observed, it's clear that the true value of education lies not just in the accumulation of knowledge, but in the development of the capacity to think, analyze, and question. It's about learning how to learn, adapting to new situations, and being able to apply knowledge in diverse and changing contexts. This learning model also has its origins in ancient Sumer. The evolution of Sumerian education and script was a remarkable journey that shaped the very fabric of civilization. Originating from the fertile lands of Sumer, the cuneiform writing system was a groundbreaking advancement. Initially, it featured simple pictographs on clay tablets, primarily for economic and administrative records. Erech, a prominent Sumerian city, is renowned for unearthing over 1,000 of these ancient tablets, some of which were crucial for the study and practice of language. Education in Sumer, initially aimed at training scribes for temple and palace administrative needs, evolved into a significant cultural and learning hub. The curriculum expanded, encompassing a broad spectrum of knowledge including theology, botany, zoology, mineralogy, geography, mathematics, grammar, and linguistics. This transformation marked the Sumerian school as not just an institution for administrative training, but a cradle of scholarly pursuit. Education was not universal, it was predominantly a privilege of the wealthy. The school's structure was unique. The head of the school, known as Umia, or school father, was assisted by various faculty members, including the big brother, who was akin to an assistant professor. Their roles were diverse, from creating new tablets for students to copy, to overseeing discipline, and they were likely compensated through tuition fees collected from the students. Despite many graduates becoming temple and palace scribes, a select few dedicated their lives to academia, akin to modern-day university professors, balancing teaching with research and writing. It is important to highlight that in Sumer, although we did not have a philosophical system as we have today, the first civilization on the planet collectively viewed a philosophical system based on epistemology and interconnected cosmological fundamental questions with theology and the worldview offered through their gods and religious beliefs. The Sumerian school, initially an extension of the temple, gradually transitioned into a secular educational establishment. In this sense, we understand one of the most fundamental issues concerning what is hidden from us. Education began in the temple, originating from the temples and directed towards teachings that came from those who descended from the heavens. Thus, we arrive at the last of the three fundamental pillars of manipulation. Religion. Religion, like work and education, is a fundamental pillar of human society, deeply intertwined with culture and personal identity. It provides answers to life's big questions, offering a framework for understanding the world and our place in it. However, it also raises critical questions about the scope of inquiry and understanding. Does religion enrich our perspective, or does it limit it by providing predefined answers to profound existential questions? Our religious beliefs are significantly shaped by our upbringing and cultural background. From a young age, we are often introduced to religious concepts that are deeply ingrained in our family and community traditions. This cultural transmission of belief systems plays a crucial role in shaping our worldview. It begs the question, are our religious beliefs a true reflection of individual understanding, or are they largely a product of our environment? Religion's role in forming identity is complex. On one hand, it can offer a sense of belonging, comfort, and moral guidance. On the other hand, it can lead to a narrow perspective where alternative viewpoints or beliefs are not just unexplored, but often discouraged. This can create a barrier to open-minded inquiry and a holistic understanding of the diverse world we live in. Furthermore, the influence of family and culture in shaping religious beliefs can sometimes lead to a passive acceptance of doctrines and practices. Instead of a personal journey of discovery and understanding, religion can become a set of inherited beliefs and rituals that are followed more out of tradition than conviction. In this sense, religion demonstrates, in my view, the foremost of all problems. Religion offers us comforting answers before we have the capacity for critical and analytical thinking to ask questions. In this case, the answers come before the questions. So when we begin to question ourselves, who are we, where do we come from, and where are we going? Who exactly am I? Is there a God? Who is this God? The answers to all these questions are already prepared, duly delivered, and sealed in a package of beliefs adorned with flowers along the way. There are no doubts or anxieties. Religion has already provided us not just with one, but with several certainties. And you know what? If you question, you are a heretic, and it would be better if you didn't even speak about it. Depending on the environment you're in, they might say you're being used as a tool of darkness to disorient the souls that follow their path towards Almighty God. You are being the adversary. You are being Satan. And I don't even need to say where they suppose you will go, right? And obviously, they will still tell you that you are a sheep, and that your shepherd is waiting for you to lead you to the flock. After all, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. About this wordplay, it is necessary to make it clear. The literal translation, which can be verified in an interlinear version, demonstrates not the term Lord, but the name of a rather specific deity, Yahweh. Psalm 23 reveals, Yahweh is my shepherd, nothing shall I lack. And it would be good to consider another psalm, Psalm 25, so that it becomes strictly clear. To you, O Yahweh, am I lifting up my soul. My Elohim, in you have I trusted. Do not let me be ashamed. Do not let my enemies be glad over me. Indeed, all expecting you shall not be ashamed. They shall be ashamed who are being treacherous without excuse. Acquaint me with your ways, O Yahweh. Teach me your paths. Cause me to tread in your truth, and teach me. For you are the Elohim of my salvation, and I expect you the entire day. And this passage makes something very clear, that Yahweh is one of the Elohim, and as we've seen in other videos, one of the Anunnaki. And this is the greatest problem. Before we can break away from the herd and seek our own questions and achieve, or not, our own answers, we are already committed to a clear answer. You are the Elohim of my salvation. So salvation is not in our hands, but in the hands of an entity. Furthermore, it's important to remember that this entity has representatives on earth, and most religions have them. These representatives of God on earth. In my personal journey, I have found that exploring various religious ideas and philosophies has broadened my understanding of the world and humanity. It has taught me that while religion can be a source of great wisdom and insight, it should not limit our quest for knowledge or deter us from seeking answers on our own terms. True spiritual fulfillment, I believe, comes from a balance between faith and questioning, tradition and exploration. Religion, at its best, should be a path that leads to deeper understanding and connection with the divine, with oneself, and with the world. It should inspire us to seek truth and understanding, not just accept prepackaged answers. Now, informed of the veils that cover our observation, we continue our journey towards the past to understand more deeply where it all began and who exactly we are. We will therefore make use of science through history and archaeology to understand how it all began. The Fertile Crescent, particularly the region of Sumer in Mesopotamia, is often heralded as the cradle of civilization. This title stems from its status as one of the earliest regions to exhibit the traits now associated with advanced societies. It is believed that the shift from hunter-gatherers to agrarian societies in this area was pivotal. Early communities here gradually moved from semi-permanent settlements to more permanent ones, thanks to their transition to agriculture and the resultant surplus in food production. This surplus allowed for a division of labor, where not all individuals were required to farm. As a result, various professions emerged, like pottery, with individuals trading their crafts for food. The concept of a division of labor also ushered in the production of surplus goods. These goods, along with food, became commodities for trade with distant communities. It's thought that such long-distance trade necessitated the invention of writing systems, primarily for the purpose of maintaining commercial records. As communities grew, the simple forms of governance that had sufficed for smaller populations evolved into more complex and centralized systems. Often, these systems integrated a religious aspect, leading to the construction of grand temples and the creation of a rich literary tradition centered on deities. Sumerians, the early inhabitants of what would later be known as Mesopotamia, played a crucial role in defining the elements of a civilization. They laid the groundwork for several key developments, such as the concept of time, which was essential for long-distance trade and animal domestication. Their advancements in fields like mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, and medical practices were remarkable. They also established early forms of religious rituals, contributed significantly to the development of astrology and the zodiac, and were pioneers in scientific thought and technology. These contributions were foundational in the advancement of their society and left a lasting impact on subsequent civilizations. We only know the history because there were written records of what happened with the first civilization in history. They are the clay tablets of Sumer and ancient Mesopotamia, excavated in the Library of Nineveh in the mid-19th century. These artifacts, varying in shape, size, and preservation state, offer a window into ancient literary worlds. Remarkably, less than 10% of these approximately 40,000 tablets and fragments contain literary treasures like myths, epic narratives, hymns, prayers, laments, and compositions of wisdom. Predominantly inscribed in Sumerian and Akkadian, a smaller fraction exists in languages such as Hittite, Ugaritic, and others like Hattic and Hurrian. Although the earliest Greek and Hebrew literary works were penned no earlier than the 8th century BC, and most Sumerian texts date back to around 2000 BC, direct borrowing from Sumerian sources at the time of composition is improbable. Instead, Sumerian influence likely reached Greek and Hebrew literature indirectly through intermediaries like Canaanite, Hittite, and Akkadian literature, particularly Akkadian, which was the lingua franca of the 2nd millennium BC. This indirect transmission of Sumerian influence is evident in numerous parallels between Sumerian and Greek literary works. These include mythological themes such as the creation of the universe, the birth of gods, culture heroes, dragon slaying, divine battles, flood stories, divine plagues, and depictions of the netherworld. Similarities are also found in epic poetry, where Sumerian epics predate and possibly influence Akkadian works, like the Epic of Gilgamesh. Knowledgeable of all this preamble offered by history and archaeology, and of our reflections from the pillars that sustain society, let us rediscover, redesign, and reinvent human history. And for what we will do here, we will not need absolutely any other author like Zecharia Sitchin, Erich von Daniken, Mauro Biglino, Paul Wallace, and so many other scholars on the subject. We will observe, quite simply, what the Mesopotamian tablets tell us. Specifically, the developments and possible inferences from some texts available for reading by any of us on the internet. Sumerian King List, Enki and the World Order, Epic of Atrahasis, Enuma Elish, and the Epic of Gilgamesh. From the observation of these texts, beyond any Manichaean interpretation in attempting to define good and evil, light and darkness, it is possible to understand our origin, made in the image and likeness of the ancient gods. It all begins in a time when humans had not yet been created. The tablet Sumerian King's List is very clear in stating, in its first part, after the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Ululim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Alulgar ruled for 36,000 years. 2 kings, they ruled for 64,800 years. There's no need to extensively continue this text. It's enough to acknowledge that no human being is capable of living for 28,800 years. The time when Ululim became king. Also, it doesn't take much effort to understand that there's no human who descended from heaven where they would have settled in a city called Eridu. And from there, the newcomer Ululim ruled himself, because during this period, there was still no civilization. For this period in which no human has ever lived, 28,800 years. However, it's astonishing to know that our archaeology indicates that the first city was named Eridu, although it points to the date of its foundation around 5,400 BCE. But archaeology itself indicates that the Sumerians, the people who inhabited that region, which is now Abu Shahre in Iraq, believed that the city had been established by the gods according to their beliefs, and that this city would house the abode of Enki, known as Ea in Akkadian, one of the great gods Anunnaki who decreed destinies. Science, history, and archaeology interpret the notion that royalty descended from the heavens as a common belief at the time, in the philosophical understanding that ancient humans believed that power and royalty conferred to kings and nobles came from God. However, these same historians forget that at that time, there was no singular god, but rather plural gods. The Sumerian King List continues with a huge list of kings ruling for periods of time as absurd as the initial 28,800 years of Ululim. Governance shifts, not only among different kings with gigantic durations, but also among different cities. This demonstrates then that these beings who descended from the heavens, and we need to say beings because there were no humans at that time, alternated power among different inhabited cities. In another text called Enki and the World Order, we can clearly observe how Enki, the god who according to Sumerian beliefs was established in Eridu, ordered different gods, putting them in charge of different functions. Additionally, we can observe different activities involving work with ores, such as situations of gold and silver being transported by Enki to another god named Enlil, identified as the king of all lands in a supposedly unknown location in that text, referred to as Nibru. In the text, Enki and the World Order, we can clearly observe how Enki received supreme powers from the gods Anuna or Anunnaki in his city, Eridu. According to scholars, Anuna or Anunnaki means the offspring of Anu or of royal descent. Still, according to scholars, and in this video we are not pointing out anything other than academic studies, An for the Sumerians, or Anu for the Akkadians, is a name that represents the sky. So being a descendant of Anu can mean being children of heaven, or descending from the sky, or being part of royalty. It seems through this text that the gods worked on earth, in a period when humans did not exist. This possibility is demonstrated very clearly in various texts. Two of them are the Epic of Atrahasis and the Enuma Elish. According to the Epic of Atrahasis, when the gods, instead of man, did the work, bore the loads, the gods' load was too great, the work too hard, the trouble too much, the great Anunnaki made the Igigi carry the workload sevenfold. Anu, their father, was king, their counselor warrior Enlil, their chamberlain was Ninurta, their canal controller Ennugi. Another version of the Atrahasis epic makes it even clearer that the gods were working and that there were no human beings. The gods were digging watercourses, canals they opened, the life of the land. The Igigi gods were digging watercourses, canals they opened, the life of the land. The Igigi gods dug the Tigris River and the Euphrates thereafter. Springs they opened from the depths, wells they established. It is possible to clearly understand that these gods, lower in hierarchy, worked in activities of canal opening. It is necessary to highlight that at this point it is already possible to understand an interesting puzzle. In ancient Greece, which existed after the events of Mesopotamia and the beginning of civilization, Plato mentioned an ancient civilization that had been lost in time and submerged by a great flood. The hypothetical Atlantis would be very ancient and must date back to the millennial times indicated by the Sumerian King's List, at a time when humans did not yet exist on Earth. Moreover, it is worth noting that various mythologies around the world mention such events of a gigantic flood. Various Sumerian tablets, such as the Atrahasis epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Eridu Genesis, the Sumerian King's List, among many others, also mention the said flood. According to the accounts of the legendary Atlantis, it would be an island of extreme vegetal and mineral wealth. Not only was the island magnificently prolific in deposits of gold, silver, copper, iron, etc., but also of orichalcum, a metal that shone like fire. The kings of Atlantis would have built numerous bridges, canals, and fortified passages between their land belts, each protected with bronze-coated walls on the outside and tin on the inside. Among these shone buildings constructed of white, black, and red stones. Such descriptions of the legendary Atlantis could easily be identified through Sumerian accounts, from the times when royalty descended from the heavens, settled in Eridu and various other cities, made use of silver, gold, copper, and other minerals, transferred royalty between different cities long before human existence. The first humans' records, in clay tablets, demonstrates that the junior gods are enraged by the toil, and in the assembly of the gods, they decided to create humans so that humans take on the work of the gods. In the Epic of Atrahasis, we read, "Bele Eli, the midwife, is present. Let her create then a human, a man. Let him bear the yoke. Let him bear the yoke. Let man assume the drudgery of the god." In the 7 tablets of creation, in the Enuma Elish, we read, "Create a human being, that he bear the yoke. Let him bear the yoke. The task of Enlil. Let man assume the drudgery of the god." This clearly demonstrates in what terms humanity was created, to work for the greater gods rather than the lesser gods who grew weary of the task. In this sense, it is necessary to remember that the term Mesopotamia derives from Greek, meaning land between rivers. And the myth of Atrahasis defines which rivers these are, the Tigris and Euphrates, precisely the same rivers in the Fertile Crescent, where our science defines as the cradle of human civilization. Among the texts that I promised you, which would serve as a basis for reflection, we still need to examine just one of them, the Epic of Gilgamesh. From it, we have a very clear answer regarding the mortality and finitude of human life. Tablet 9, right at the beginning, asserts, "Over his friend Enkidu, Gilgamesh cried bitterly, roaming the wilderness, 'I am going to die. Am I not like Enkidu?' Deep sadness penetrates my core, and I fear death and now roam the wilderness. I will set out to the region of Utnapishtim, son of Ubartutu, and will go with utmost dispatch. In this passage from the extensive Epic of Gilgamesh, he is extremely saddened and moved by the death of his friend Enkidu. He fears his own death as well. Thus, Gilgamesh sets out in search of Utnapishtim. In the 11th tablet of this epic, he will discover that Utnapishtim was chosen by Enki, warned amidst a wall of reeds, to survive the flood. However, the Epic of Gilgamesh is very clear regarding human finitude. Siduri Sabitu, the wise one, states, "Gilgamesh, where are you roaming? You will never find the eternal life that you seek. When the gods created mankind, they also created death, and they held back eternal life for themselves alone. Humans are born, they live, then they die. This is the order that the gods have decreed. But until the end comes, enjoy your life, spend it in happiness, not despair. That is the best way for a man to live." Utnapishtim survived the Great Flood, and in the Epic of Gilgamesh, he recounts how he was chosen by the gods and granted eternal life by them. Several other tablets bring similar accounts, such as the Eridu Genesis, mentioning the names Ziusudra and Atrahasis in connection to the same Utnapishtim, later called Noah in the Torah. Thus, through careful study of different sources and making various correlations, without relying on any author deemed pseudoscientific by academia, we can understand that the royalty, or the gods, descended from the sky, established cities, organized labor, then rebelled. And from this rebellion, humans were created so that from that moment on, they would perform the work for the greater gods, instead of the junior gods called Igigi. But what happened after the flood? Well, the Sumerian King List provides us with an answer. 8 kings ruled for 385,200 years. Then the flood swept over. After the flood had swept over and the kingship had descended from heaven, the kingship was in Kish. From what we can understand from the list of Sumerian kings, as well as from other documents, history, and archaeology, the gods, even after the flood, remained on earth. Moreover, the gods even selected rulers. The text from the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, numbered as 2.8.2.4, says, "The gods are addressed, give him the scepter. The name of Babylon, the city of lordship. Make the king preeminent in the world. Asarluhi, destiny for my Hammurabi, Enlil and Enki, with him. When they had decided, all the great gods together, joyfully to Marduk. Hammurabi, the command of An and Enlil, of heaven and earth, throughout the world. An and Enlil, to the king. Among the great gods, Asarluhi. In Babylon, the city, the precinct, the pure dwelling. Foundation, the great dais, the beloved and august dwelling, enjoy. The noble son of the gods, royal name, they firmly spoke their consent to him. When they, the power of Enlil over the numerous people, they manifested his destiny, the life of the land. They magnified Hammurabi, their benign shepherd, and over all the black-headed, him whom Enki has his favor in the land. It is necessary to clarify on this matter that Asarluhi is another name for Marduk, the supreme Babylonian god. And as it can be observed, Hammurabi was chosen by Marduk, accompanied by Anu, Enki, and Enlil, to receive the scepter of power. Thus, he could rule over the black-headed people, which is a term referring to the Sumerians. That's how they called themselves. Sumer is a later term offered to them by other peoples. Sumer means land of civilized kings. Curious, isn't it? Land of civilized kings leads us to the kings, or the royalty that descended from the heavens and ruled for millennia until the creation of humans. And civilization refers to everything that those who descended from the heavens taught. Invariably, in the prologue of the Code of Hammurabi, we read, "When Anu the Sublime, king of the Anunnaki, and Bel, the lord of heaven and earth, who decreed the fate of the land, assigned to Marduk, the overruling son of Ea, god of righteousness, dominion over earthly man, and made him great among the Igigi, they called Babylon by his illustrious name, made it great on earth, and founded an everlasting kingdom in it, whose foundations are laid so solidly as those of heaven and earth. Then Anu and Bel called by name me, Hammurabi, the exalted prince, who feared God, to bring about the rule of righteousness in the land, to destroy the wicked and the evildoers, so that the strong should not harm the weak, so that I should rule over the black-headed people like Shamash, and enlighten the land, to further the well-being of mankind." After all we've seen, it's necessary to reflect. For what reason has such truth been widely denied to us? Who benefits from keeping all this hidden? I say and affirm to you, this knowledge would make all the foundational structures of our world collapse. Shattered pieces on the ground, we are left with only one alternative: to restructure everything. Without these foundational pillars that keep us bound to this reality, we would become a society that thinks and acts independently, without the control imposed upon us. But for that, I must entertain a possibility that all this history I presented to you is not true. And this is the story that is told to us. Myths are just myths and not historical accounts. The Bible and other religious books, each for a different religion, are the true revelation. We should not listen to other thoughts as they lead us away from the path of truth. I am saying to you that the rich squeamishly will be entering into the kingdom of the heavens. Happy in spirit are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. So it seems like everything tells us, work, work, and work. Sleep little, take care of yourself little. Live with little. Produce and produce for society, but don't be rich and prosperous. Take a deep breath and be thankful for the life the Almighty has given you. Ask for your daily bread. Don't think, for they will lead you astray and steer you off course. God watches over you, and there is no truth beyond Him. Salvation has already been achieved, and you're just a sinner passing through the world. Only God can offer you eternal life. Go to school and study. Become just another brick in the wall. After all, everything you are is just another brick in the wall. I want to make it clear to you, this video is a very strong and important video. And for this reason, if this subject pleases you, subscribe to the channel here. I am not against any religion. I am against any mental imprisonment or any kind of ideology that does not allow you to explore different possibilities. I defend freedom of thought. I am not against any belief in God. I believe in the existence of God and do not think that everything came by chance without a creator. I just don't think my salvation depends on Him. Salvation depends on me. I need to become a better person. It is not God who will do this for me. I am not against any kind of government. I understand the need for their existence to organize society, but I am against any kind of governance that could take away individual freedom from people. I am not against work. I think working ennobles and dignifies people. And through these videos, which are my work, I hope to deliver good content to make your life more enjoyable. I am not against education. I think that without education, we will never have a peaceful society. But I am against the disorderly way our society has promoted knowledge and has turned human beings into execution machines without critical and analytical thinking. Gradually, we are becoming machines. In the mold of what Charles Chaplin showed us, We seem, many times, like screws being tightened, living a few decades only to die without ever looking inside ourselves. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends and family. See you in the next video.